This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more.
Show your move. Good news, everyone. Don't you dig when you see onions have legs?
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Radio Michelle, and this is the inside of my mind. Guys, of course, my name is Radio Mike, but every week on the show, as you know, if you've listened to the show, which I assume most people who are listening to this have listened to the show before. But if this is the first time you've ever listened, welcome. Probably not the best episode to join, to be honest, but stick with it. Why not? My name is, of course, Radio Mike. Every week on the show, I try to do a different name at the top of the show. This week, went with Radio Michelle. Reasoning for that was didn't think of one. And then when I start, it always does kind of happen like this. I get to the start of the pod, I press the button that plays this, right? I press that and then I'm like, oh no, I have to do that thing where I have a name at the start and I haven't thought of one. And often listeners submit them, but this time there's none. And then basically either at that point, and this happens every week, this is a bit of a sneak peek behind the curtain for you. At that point every week, I basically have to go, either I'm just thinking of one on the spot and committing to it, or I'm going to stop the recording and start again and actually go think of one and then start again. This week, usually I do the latter. So usually I'll stop and think of something. This week I was just like, nah, fuck it. I am committing to whatever comes into my head next. Bam, it was Radio Michelle. You know, Michael, Michelle, there you go. That's what I've done. Radio Mike here, though. Welcome to my podcast, 20th Century Boy, a weekly blog, audio and visual blog, about my life. And I explained last week the new premise of the podcast. Well, it's not the new premise. It's the always premise of the podcast. But just to clear it up, I think one of the new taglines of the show for 2022 is 20th Century Boy, the conversations I want to be having. Which again, I made that up last week, but it's like, and it sounds really profound. It's like, yeah, these are like the big conversations, man. These are the conversations we want to be having. Like they're like political. I don't know why I just went into an American accent. Like I was just trying to be some woke American dude. Basically like, you know, when I say 20th Century Boy, the conversations I want to be having, I guess it should really be the conversations you want to be having, right? Because, and it does sound political. It sounds like, you know, I'm going to be talking about all the big hitting political issues, you know, all the corruption in politics and stuff. But really, when I say that this podcast is the conversations that you want to be having, I mean just talking shit about the new Beatles documentary or Crazy Frog. What else have we done? Like, you know, lots of pop culture analysis on this podcast. Basically, it's the stuff that I think about in the shower. That's it. See, we now have two taglines for the podcast. 20th Century Boy, the conversations you want to be having, and 20th Century Boy, the stuff you think about in the shower. Now, those are two of that's sort of like the space we're in. So it's like, to me, this podcast is the conversations I want to be having, but don't have time to have. Including this conversation right now. Of course, it is a one-way conversation, but it's basically you and me, the listener, hanging out for about an hour a week, right? That's what this podcast is. Welcome. I hope you feel welcome. I hope you enjoy it here. Coming very close to the end of the year. And I want to say just at the top of this episode, so let's get into it. This might be a shorter episode, which I apologize for. But essentially, today, when I'm recording this, is my birthday. It is currently my 27th birthday. Woo, happy birthday, Mike. Oh, guys, stop. I told you I didn't want to make a fuss. Come on. No, happy birthday, Mike. No, guys, seriously, don't. I didn't want to fuss. Come on. I'm embarrassed. Anyway, today is my birthday. It is Sunday, the 12th of December, 2021. It's 4:04 p.m. Within a couple hours, I have to be at my parents' house for a dinner. My brother's birthday is the 10th. So we're 2 years and 2 days apart. So we always do something on the weekend of our birthdays together. So we're both going to mum and dad's tonight. And this has been the busiest weekend of my life. So, you know, Friday I was, I worked all week working the 9 to 5 new job. Sorry, I've got so much to talk about. I feel like it's all blurting out. Worked the 9 to 5 job, brother's birthday, Caught up with a bunch of people yesterday for my birthday, and then today I've got a bunch of stuff, and I just have so little time. I feel like I have no time this weekend, so I'm just like, all right, I'm sitting down and I'm just doing the podcast. And this week it's going to be a less structured pod, because I'm really sorry, I didn't have time to like plan a bunch of stuff out for this one. So I've got a bunch of stuff I'm going to talk about, but a lot of stuff that normally happens on the show will be on hold to the next episode. Apologies, but stick with it. I think this will be a fun episode. Of course, if you want to support the show, quickly, let's get this out of the way. Patreon.com/Radio Mike. As little as $1 a month a week, you get access to the bonus podcasts, which are really funny. We're nearly at 50 patrons. We're doing really well, and it's awesome to have all your support. I do want to read out a testament. I hope this convinces you to sign up to the Patreon. Radio James. Welcome to the radio family. He says, again, patreon.com/Radio Mike. Hey, Radio Mike, feel free to read this on the pod. I was behind a few episodes, so I did my favorite thing, which is go for a hike in the Arizona desert. So this is a Patreon supporter and listener from over in, I guess, Arizona. Go for a hike in the Arizona desert and binge the show. Incredible to me that this podcast I started 3 years ago, someone is walking through the Arizona desert in the USA listening to. Send in, if you're from overseas, or if you're just wherever you're from, send in like the most obscure place you're listening to the show. Attach a photo as well. He goes on. I've got to stop saving up episodes and start listening to them as they drop so I can play along with the trivia and get some of them sweet, sweet points because I totally knew the answer. I'm also a proud Patreon of the show, and as such, I have access to the secret feed, and I am loving the Pat and Mike shows. So, the Pat and Mike shows are the podcast that me and Pat, the producer of this show, are doing once a week. It changes up a lot. Sometimes we just chat. Sometimes we do improvisations. For example, a few weeks ago, we did one called Welcome to Boner City, which is a shop that sells boners, and I was a customer and Pat was a staff member. It was crazy. So we do a bunch of stuff like that. So James says, I'm loving Pat and Mike show. That content alone is worth the price of admission for Patreon. $1 a month, you get access to this. That's what James says. That content alone is worth the prices of admission for Patreon. You boys had me cackling like a madman while I was cleaning my garage. I was worried my neighbors might hear me and think I was suffering a mental break. Congrats on the new job and happy birthday while it's top of mind since I just caught up. So if that's any inspiration to listen to the Pat and Mike podcast Patreon exclusive, as little as $1 a month, just a tip jar. And that's $12 a year, right? As I always say, 3 coffees a year. If you'd get coffee with me 3 times a year, I'd love for you to jump on the Patreon. Or if you'd just send me $12 on PayPal, paypal.me/itsradiomike, that goes a long way. You're essentially paying for a month of this podcast being hosted online, right? It's $15 a month. If you send $15, you're basically paying for the podcast to be alive for a month, right? At the moment, the show runs at a loss. We are starting to bring in a bit more revenue, which is awesome. So any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. People are also buying merch, radiomike.com.au/merch. Thank you so much again for that. It's really, really awesome. The other reason this has to be a shorter ep is, tomorrow working all day. And then it's my housemate's birthday, so we're doing something with her. And then Tuesday, I am going to Sydney for the day for the Hamish and Andy Christmas party. So that's literally day in and then fly back at like 10 o'clock at night. So it's going to be a really long day, and I'm just not going to have any time to record other than today, which is why I just thought I really want to get an episode out. I just don't have time to do the planning this week, so let's just do something. So thank you for understanding. People seem really understanding of the fact that, again, I have to work and this doing my pods and stuff doesn't sustain me. People are always really understanding, and I genuinely really appreciate it because I know a lot of people really like this pod, which is surprising to me, but it's awesome, and get a lot out of listening to it every week. So I really didn't want to miss a week because I know people really, really like it. Speaking of my birthday, 2 things on my birthday this week. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who's wished me a happy birthday. I've really appreciated it, and I've had a great birthday. Lots of people have. Particular thank you to all the people who are wishing me a happy 25th birthday. Those people I know are the loyal listeners of this show because, again, if you do not know, my 25th birthday in 2019, December 12th, 2019. I said on this podcast, on that episode, whenever you're listening to this, whether it's in 10 years in the future, 3 years in the future, 5 years in the future, just send me a message saying happy 25th birthday, Mike. And people do this. I get messages all year round saying happy 25th birthday, Mike. And it's awesome. It means I will be immortal and live at 25 forever in the eyes of the listeners. So thank you to everyone who sent me a happy 25th birthday. That's a great little message to get. It also confuses people about my age. One person did message me happy 26th birthday. So I think that they might be confused, but awesome. But the main thing about my birthday this year that I just really do have to talk about is the fact that this year, my birthday was officially sponsored by Grilled Burgers. This is not a joke. After months of hounding them, Grilled Burgers officially agreed to sponsor my birthday. I have never heard of a company sponsoring someone's birthday. I've also never heard of a person selling their birthday for ad space. But now, for the rest of time, for all time, for the rest of history, it will go down that my 27th birthday was sponsored by Grilled. I repeat, my 27th birthday was sponsored by Grilled Burgers. I did a post on Instagram. Mike's 27th birthday, proudly brought to you by Grilled Burgers, and it was awesome. They sent me a bunch of food. It was very cool, and man, I love some of the messages you guys were sending to Grilled to get them over the line for this. Basically, people started messaging Grilled trying to get them to sponsor my birthday. My favorite comes in from Michael Walls, who sent a message to Grilled, a deceptive message saying, "Hi Grilled, just wanted to provide some feedback on one of your employees." And Grilled earnestly responds, "Hey mate, sorry to hear that. Drop us a line on grilled.com.au/feedback and the manager will be in touch personally." And he replied with, No, it's good feedback. Always putting the good name of Grilled out there, working tirelessly to promote the brand. The bloke deserves a pay rise or maybe a sponsored birthday party. I think he goes by the name Radio Mike. And Grilled was replying to a lot of people. Like, Grilled was replying to lots of you who were sending them messages and, like, DMing me on Instagram. It was so funny. It was so awesome. People, like, get around the memes of this show as well. Had a bunch of people writing in some funny stuff. Radio James, happy birthday, Mike. I've been more invested in the Grilled saga than any other story this year, which is huge. Like, this, I think, has been one of the dumbest content things I've done all year, but it has been a saga, right? It's great to see they're finally giving you the birthday sponsorship that you deserve. Thank you, James. And yeah, it really has been a saga. This all started when I did one TikTok, a viral TikTok about how I hate Grilled. Neck minute, right? 8 months later, Grilled is sponsoring my birthday. This is insanity, right? I'm literally doing an Instagram post saying, Mike's birthday, sponsored by Grilled. Love this so much. Radio Julia, she's actually the one that sent the happy 26th birthday, Mike, and she says, so glad that Grilled finally caved for their most deserving ambassador. Love that, Radio Julia. Thank you so much. And Radio Timmy Dibbs, a Christmas fiend, who has been thinking about Christmas for a very long time. He simply, on my birthday, said, Merry Christmas, Mike, 13 days until the big day. Huge insult on my birthday to send me that. But yeah, I loved all of the stuff that you guys were sending in relation to Grilled. I do want to share some of the interactions that I actually had with Grilled, because I did send them a bunch of voice messages on Instagram explaining that I wanted them to sponsor me. And then basically, after all of you guys hounded them, Grilled just came to me and said, all right, the people in our DMs have spoken. What kind of feature would we be getting as your sponsor? And I basically said, look, if you sponsor my birthday, I'll do a bunch of Instagram posts and I'll talk about you on my podcast. And they go, deal. And it's locked in, right? And then they even said, this is our first birthday sponsorship, probably only, knowing how these things work. So it's a big weekend for all. Love this so much for Grilled. And Grilled, looking forward to hopefully working with you in 2022. I am opening up sponsorship opportunities for my 28th birthday, but Grilled, happy to continue this arrangement next year as well. Thank you so much, Grilled. It's been a fantastic and amazing year all around. Trivia question of the week will be on hold for this week, so we usually do that at the start of the ep. Again, just haven't had time to organise that, so there'll be one next week. Apologies for people waiting for that. One thing I did want to do on this week's ep is a quick TikTok push. Randomly in like the past week, we've gotten like 500 followers, so we are actually very close to hitting 10k TikTok followers by the end of the year. That is my goal. It might not come true, but I'd love to push for it anyway. If you've seen any of my videos, hit the follow button on TikTok. If you have TikTok and don't follow me, check it out because there's so much great content and clips from the pod going up on the TikTok that Pat, the producer of this show, puts a ton of effort into. Patreon.com/Radio Mike, as little as $1 a month to see and hear more of Pat in the bonus podcast. I would love for you to get on the TikTok. And again, there is a TikTok already there from a previous episode where if I get 10k followers by the end of the year, the most liked comment on that TikTok I am going to do. Currently, it's to change my profile picture to something called Eagerly Piggly or something like that. I don't know, but that's what I'm apparently going to do. Would love more suggestions. But yeah, please follow the TikTok. 10k by the end of 2021 would be awesome. Like, I guess it's pretty crazy because literally Pat only started doing the TikToks kind of regularly at the start of the year, and we've accumulated nearly 10,000 followers. I know there's people who have like 100,000 or 1 million and they're influencers and stuff, but for me, like, to hit 10k on TikTok is super awesome. Like, if we do, I'm sure eventually we will, but yeah, it's awesome. And again, really grateful for all of you for getting around it. I really appreciate that. All right. A little bit of feedback here on last week's ep where I talked about the Beatles Get Back documentary. This comes in from Radio Connor O'Brien. Welcome to the RF. Thanks for your feedback. My point that I was making was that like the Beatles doco Get Back on Disney Plus is just too long. Like, it's simply too long. There are 3 episodes that are 2.5 hours each. And one thing I find is like, especially nowadays, I just don't have the time. I barely finish TV shows now because I just don't have time. There's so much stuff to consume now between movies, TV series, books, albums and music, podcasts, YouTube. Like, there's just so much stuff. I can't keep up and I just forget about stuff and never finish it. Even though I really like it, I'm just like, I'm never going to finish this. I started watching The X-Files during lockdown. Got through a bunch of episodes and now I'm just like, there's like 300 episodes of The X-Files. I'm never going to finish it. In my life, I just have to accept that at no point in my life will I finish The X-Files. And that's crazy, right? Anyway, I digress. Connor. Hey Radio Mike, just listening to the newest pod and agree with the Beatles Get Back doco being too long. That being said, I watched the whole thing in a day. That's 7.5 hours, Connor. 2 parts through the day, took a break and watched the final part at night, and honestly it felt like a journey and a half. Love seeing the beginning of song ideas forming into the tracks we know of, Let It Be and Abbey Road. He says the tracks we know off of Let It Be, the album, and Abbey Road, the album. Seeing Paul McCartney coming up with the song Get Back on a whim with his guitar was magical. That's my thoughts. Love the pod. Love you, Connor. Thanks for writing in. A few people had a couple of things to say around the Beatles, including Radio Lazar. Thanks, Laz. He says, I put some of my thoughts about Get Back in the Discord. Jump on the Discord if you want. It's free for any listener of the podcast to get in and chat movies, TV shows, music, this podcast, and a bunch of other stuff. So feel free to get in. Send me a message. Regarding its length, I don't see the issues. If you can't sit down and watch a part in one sitting, then that's fine, since there are so many times you can pause it and not feel jarring. The doco goes through day by day, so whenever a day is over, just pause and pick up the next day or whenever you want to. I watched part 2 over 3 sittings because I didn't have the time to watch it in one go. The general length can be daunting to think about, but I think about how many times people say they don't want to sit through a 2.5 movie, but they're happy to binge hours of a TV show. Yeah, interesting. I've actually started this year, and people might hate this, but like it works for me. Like sometimes I'll just watch a movie over 3 nights. Like, I'll start it and then I'll get tired and need to go to sleep and I'll pause it. And then the next night I'll just come back to it and pick up where I left off. Basically watching a movie as if it was like 3 episodes of a TV show as opposed to a movie. I realize that's not for everyone because, you know, people like it's supposed to be taken as one thing. But I just think in this day and age and like the economy of time and how much time we don't have and how many things are fighting for our attention, like, hey, I want to watch this movie. I want to know the story. I want to see how it's made. I just don't have time on a weeknight, for instance, to watch it in one sitting. So I'm just going to watch it over a few nights. But yeah, I agree. And like, when I say it's too long, I am being facetious. Like, I understand that you just have to make the time to watch it. So please don't take what I'm saying too seriously. But yeah, I mean, I just think it is an interesting format, 3 times 2.5 hour episodes. Like that is pretty bulky. But yeah, thanks for the feedback, Lazar. Radio Dave Lee from the fantastic YouTube channel Dave Lee Down Under, friend of the show, and has appeared on Mike Talks as well as Harry Potter and the Boys, sent me a message. He commented on the YouTube actually, so feel free to watch video versions of this on YouTube. He said, for a lifelong die-hard Beatles fan, Get Back is quite literally the holy grail of all Beatles media. This is footage we've waited on forever. Jackson apparently had 60 plus hours worth of footage to work with, and I could easily watch the remaining 52 hours. It's an incredible unfiltered look at the band, and while I agree the episode length can be tedious, I feel like this was the best way to tell the story. Each episode somehow has its own self-contained narrative and has been beautifully edited. That said, I do agree it is long for those who aren't diehard fans. I'd like to see them release a 2 or 2.5 hour supercut of the best bits, either theatrically on Disney Plus or home media as kind of an easy to digest version for casual fans / rewatchability, though I'm not sure how they would manage that. Yeah, that's also a really good point. I love the Beatles, and more, like the older I get, the more I love them. I did mention it on last week's ep, but please listen to the album Let It Be. A phenomenal album. Like, every song on that album is just so incredible. I love it so much. I think it's one of my favorite albums now. And I mentioned it on last week's pod. But yeah, again, like just this stylistic evolution of the Beatles over like however long, you know, maybe the decade that they were making music for, starting from their first album through to like, yeah, Let It Be, Abbey Road, Sgt. Pepper's, and the White Album. Huge. And then their experimentation with like psychedelic music, and then their just creative freedom of something like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which is such a great album as well. Yeah, I just think the way they evolved is really interesting. Because I look at a band, one of my favorite bands is Green Day. And I think, you know, I'm not going to say that Green Day are in the same caliber of influence as the Beatles, but they were a pretty fucking huge rock band, particularly in the mid-thousands. Like I'd say in the American Idiot era, they were probably one of the biggest rock bands in the world, and they still have an enormous following. But I look at them and where they started in their first album, which was just raw punk rock, right? And then moving into like the first 2 albums, which were like unsigned albums that not many people have heard, 39 Smooth and Kaplunk, really raw punk. And then Dookie, their breakthrough album, which was the first on a major label, which was suddenly like really polished, but still them, still punk. And then moving into like, Warning in the year 2000, a bunch of years later, being like a more acoustic-y folk kind of punk, and then into the American Idiot era, which was like, yeah, rock opera, literally a rock opera that was huge, and they're continuing to experiment now. So I think I find it really interesting to follow bands in their careers and listen to how the sound develops, but like still having the trademarks of that sound. I mean, the Beatles really, in that first era, they were essentially, I'd say they were more or less the One Direction of their time, right? Because like they were pretty much a boy band. Like I know they were playing music, but they were all good-looking young dudes who had great voices and were singing songs like "I Want to Hold Your Hand." That's like, And that's not a bad thing. Like, I think it's great, but just seeing them then become the Let It Be Beatles, like you see them in this documentary and they're suddenly, they've lived lives. Whereas in their early music, it was just like, yeah, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Great song. Love Me Do. Great song. But then I feel like you see them on the other side with Let It Be, Hey Jude, I Got a Feeling. And there's a life that's been lived. There's more life experience in the people and in the music. That, you know, it's reflected through the music. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. But yeah, I'd love to see that too. I'd absolutely love to see that. Dave, thank you for writing in. Bit of a mailbox at the moment. So we also have a message from I didn't write your name down. I am so sorry. I didn't write your name down. Radio Anon, please remind me who you were. But it was in regards to the song Santa Baby being one of the most horny Christmas carols of all time. They've said, legit, this song comes on in Petstock all the time. I assume Petstock is a pet store. I've never heard of it. I have co-workers singing to it, but only the Hurry Down the Chimney Tonight bit, so I don't think they really know how full-on this track is. Kylie Minogue's version is extra sexified. I haven't listened to Kylie Minogue's version, but I will endeavour to do so. And Radio Adam Aitken. Welcome to the RF Radio, Adam Aitken. You're killing it, Mike. Love your insights and really value your take on pop culture and life in general. You legend, listening to Ready Player One on Audible at the moment. How good is it? Thanks for the recommendation. Because I think I talked about that on Harry Potter and the Boys. Ready Player One, great book, terrible movie. Read the book. It's really good if you're into like science fiction and pop culture. All right, just a couple more things. First of all, I want to say that I talked about how I was getting a pasta with Sam Garlep, which has been 8 months in the making. More on that next week, just haven't had time to put it together. And I will be playing the Crazy Frog racing game next week as well, because I haven't had a chance to even set up my PS2. That being said, a new Crazy Frog single launched this week. Brand new Crazy Frog single. It's called, I think it's just called Tricky. And no offense, Crazy Frog, but it sucks. It's a terrible song. I'm so sorry to Crazy Frog, to your manager, to the songwriters of Crazy Frog, whatever. Terrible song. Fails miserably at capturing the magic of the original Axel F Crazy Frog. You know, yeah, it was annoying, but at least it like remixed that song Axel F and turned it into a bit of a banger. Something you can kind of bang your head to. I'm doing it right now on the video. Just bang your head to it, right? Tricky by Crazy Frog is like this weird remix of the song It's Tricky by Run DMC. You've all heard it. It's the one that's like, it's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time, it's tricky. Great song. Go check it out. They've, grabbed the acapella of that, changed it up a bit, put a beat behind it, and then every now and then Crazy Frog comes in and goes, bing, 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 terrible. Come back with something better than that, Crazy Frog. You tease people 9 years, I think it's been. Teasing people for 9 years and then be like, hey, I'm coming back. I've got a brand new single. It's going to be huge. People are going to love it. Kids are going to love it. It's going to be crazy. Crazy Frog's going to be back flipping his willy all over the place. No. Crazy Frog, you failed miserably. The song is terrible. And I really hope if you are doing a second comeback single, I hope it's better than Tricky. Anyway, would be keen to hear people's thoughts on the new Crazy Frog song. Guys, one more thing. Got a great little message from the best friend of the show. Occasionally writes in to the show these days, but he used to be a weekly contributor, then monthly. Now it's just whenever he feels like it, because I assume he's a super busy guy. He's the best friend of the show. Long-time listeners know who I'm talking about. It's Radio Nacho Cheese. We love him, we don't hate him, and we love not hating him. I've never said that before about him, but we love him, we don't hate him, and we love not hating him. That is the slogan of Radio Nacho Cheese. Radio Nacho Cheese. You love to love him, you love to not hate him. And he's sent in a voice message with he's been teasing all year that he has a big, a big presentation or a big surprise for the show for the end of the year. Gives us a little bit of information in this voice message you sent in. So, Nach, I appreciate you getting in touch. It's great to hear your voice. Let the people know what you'd like to tell them.
Hey, Mikey, it's Nacho here, mate.
Hey, mate.
Hope you're well. Just wanted to firstly say congratulations on securing a full-time job for, I believe, December, possibly January. It's good for you, mate. Glad to see you making some income in the silly season. I know you haven't started celebrating Christmas yet, but I know you're accepting of the rest of us too, as it is now December and no longer Nomus. So me personally, I'm sort of getting into the Christmas cheer.
Love that.
Not too intensely, but, just a bit of cheer here and there. Secondly, just wanted to say that if you'd still like a little, end of year special from Nacho, myself,
yes, we do.
I can have something to you sort of late next week that you should be able to chuck on the podcast that'll come out on the 22nd, if that suits you.
Awesome.
So yeah, let me know. And lastly, got something, if you got time and you wanted to touch on it, just wanted to pose a question to you, mate. If you were offered whatever figure of money you wanted, like what is the figure of money that you would accept if it meant that for the rest of your life you had to wear a pair of shoes that were one size too small for you? So every pair of shoes you had to buy and wear were always one size too small. So, be quite painful for your feet. The only rules are the only times you can be barefoot is if you're swimming or in water or in your own house. That's it. Every other time you can't just walk around the streets barefoot. You've got to wear shoes and they've got to be one size too small. So if you'd like to just touch on that, sort of conundrum, mate, what would be the price that you'd be willing to accept for the rest of your life to live like that? Anyway, mate, love the stuff. Love your potty. Love all the potties, mate. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, I'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Nacho. Appreciate that. And
just restarting here. Sorry, forgot to add love you and love the family. Thanks, guys.
Love
Bye.
you too, man. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Okay, it's over. And amazing question there from Nach. So Nach, yes, we would like to end the year. Look, I think the 22nd was supposed to be the last episode of the year, but I didn't realize that's crept up so much. So maybe I'll just do one on the 29th just before New Year's as well. Little bonus ep, okay? 2 more eps for the year. And Nach, great question, mate. Huge question. And these are the kinds of thoughts that I can only assume Nach is having on a regular basis. These kinds of crazy out there thoughts. I think it'd be $1 million. If you give me $1 million, I'll spend the rest of my life wearing shoes that are a little bit too small. I think $1 million is that? I don't know. What would you do it for, Nach? Let us know. And listeners, let us know as well. Appreciate you guys being cool with this little shorter episode. I don't even know if it's shorter because I can't see how long I've been going for. But I'd like to wrap it up with this. The plug. The plug this week. So I think I've just revealed that I'll be doing 2 more episodes for the year, the 22nd, and then I'll do one for the 29th because I'll have finished work. I'll have heaps of time. So I will do 2 more to make up for this one being a little bit less planned. So stay tuned for that. And there will be hopefully a Christmas special as well on the 24th or the 25th of December. So get around that too. Okay, aside from that, I mentioned last week that I was on Tofop with Charlie Clausen, had a great time. Of course, talked about Harry Potter because I can't do anything without talking about Harry Potter. And here's a really funny grab of a moment I enjoyed a lot. I think the more I'm into something, the more I hate when they try to do fan service. For example, I don't know if you know, but they're doing at the moment there's a Harry Potter prequel film series called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Yeah.
Which is just, to me...
The Trials of Griswold or something.
The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Sorry. That's close.
But I really enjoyed that chat. We talked a lot. We talked about Harry Potter. We talked a lot about Star Wars. We talked the Beatles Get Back in a bit more detail as well. And then I did a bunch of listener asked questions. So if you want to get to know a bit more about my work, you can listen to that. Had a great time. As well as that, I forgot to plug this last week, but I did another bonus podcast of my work on 3AW with DD Dunleavy, where we discussed 3 other TV shows. Basically, every week I do a weekly spot on a radio station in Melbourne called 3AW with DD Dunleavy, and we talk movies and TV show streaming. And this time we did Nitram, the Martin Bryant movie about the Port Arthur massacre in Australia. We also talked about Tiger King Season 2, and we definitely did talk about one more that off the top of my head I can't quite remember, but we definitely talked about it. But go check that out. It's on this feed. I also put all of the Mike Talks episodes in a Spotify playlist. If you have Spotify and you just want the Mike Talks, which are on this feed, but if you just want them isolated, I've made a playlist which I'll put in the link to the description of podcasts from now on. So you can binge listen to all of the Mike Talks with guests like Ryan Shelton, Jack Post, Alice Tovey, Jackie Hutton, Broden Kelly from Auntie Donna, Luke Kidgel, Ruben Solo, there's definitely others. Why am I talking like this? Alex Moses from the band Columbus was the most recent one. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking like this. Anyway. And then, aside from that, the TikTok plug, patreon.com/Radio Mike would be awesome. And that's pretty much it, guys. Really appreciate you all. And I want to say that my name's been Radio Mike. This podcast has been The Inside of My Mind. Happy 25th birthday, me. I will catch you guys all next week. Thank you so much, a million times over. I love you long time, and I also love you short time. Goodbye. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.